If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat O. You're still alive. You're still
I'm
kicking.
still alive. I'm still here.
I'm not sure. We'll be doing the show for another 20 years, and I'll be like, well, he's still here, guys. Like, when is it acceptable to stop asking how you're doing? And everybody.
I think this week we can stop talking. I mean, there'll be little updates along the way because there's still going to be monumental life shit. But I mean, yeah, I think we fucked this one into the dirt. I think the Pat O open heart storyline is kind of like just slowly winding down.
Sure. You know? Okay. Well, all right. That's great news.
Right. Yeah. To find new shit to talk about. Like this weekend, I started driving for the first time. So of course the first thing I did was take my kid to the movies to see Spider-Man 3, which of course everyone knows is awesome. I'm not even going to sit here and like try to sing its praises, but it was a very enjoyable time. However, something interesting that happened that I did want to discuss on the show. We get to the theater and we find out that we can't go in without presenting our vaccination cards. So I had mine on me. Well, I didn't actually have mine on me. I had a picture of mine on my cell phone.
Sure.
But my son had just gotten vaccinated like recently, and none of us thought to take a picture of it. So we had to go back home, get his, and then turn around and come back and catch a later show. Which is kind of weird. Like, we're in that phase of this. We're in the phase of the COVID stuff now. We're like, you got to present papers. And I have a friend, similar situation. I have a friend who, very good friend of mine, and she did not get vaccinated. She's a little goofy, but I love her. And she had a guy ask her out on a date, and she had to tell him that, yeah, but you can't take me to a restaurant because I'm not vaccinated, so I can't go out to eat in a restaurant in Illinois. And I think she might have just been using it as an excuse to go straight to the dude's house, though, if I know her. Oh. But, it's kind of weird that that's where we're at now with this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, they're making us show the papers. Like, that's something that people were kind of squawking about. And are
they making you show your papers at the restaurants?
I mean, so I haven't had the restaurant thing happen, but I can confirm at AMC in Illinois. Right. Yes, you can. You're not allowed in the movie theater unless you present your vaccination card. So, I mean, I think that's worthy of pause and reflection.
That is interesting. I mean, I haven't, I've been to a couple of events, since the vaccine has been available, and I haven't had to show proof of vaccination yet.
I'm sure it's state by state, you know what I mean? And right. I think Ohio, nothing again. I mean, you know where the fuck you live. Like, I'm sure Ohio probably won't be as quick on that bandwagon as, say, like New York, Illinois, California, shit like that. But I think that it's something that might be coming, or maybe it's not. Maybe it will be state by state specific,
I mean, I've heard of isolated events. Some of my friends have done events. There was one event that I couldn't go to because you had to show that you were fully vaccinated. And when I got vaccinated, I did it the Canadian route. I didn't do it the way that they recommend. They recommend 6 weeks in between your first vaccine and your second. And I waited, a long time, 6-7 months before.
Really?
Yeah, because that's how the rest of the world is doing it.
Well, mine was like 3 weeks. Mine wasn't even 6 weeks.
Because I know, well, maybe it is 3 weeks, but I know the way that it works, and your antibodies disappear over time, so it doesn't make sense for you to go and just get back to back shots. I mean, could you do that? Yeah, you can, but it doesn't make sense to do that. You might as well wait the 6-month period. it's like when you are infected with COVID, then it's like a 3 to 6 month period before you are at risk of getting it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the same deal, but you need to think about it in way of vaccines. Like I haven't had my first booster because I just got my second shot in December.
Yeah, my heart surgery stuff fucked with me getting my booster. I haven't gotten mine yet either. They didn't want me to do it prior to the surgery, and now that I'm out, they're like, just give it some time, which puts me in a precarious situation because like it's fucking everywhere here in Illinois.
Right.
My son's home for the week because he had 2 outbreaks in his classroom. My wife, there's been plenty of people at her work that have gotten it multiple times and shit like that. My buddy got it; his whole family had it. And everyone seems to be bouncing back pretty quick. That's the Omicron.
Omicron, I
Yeah, it
think.
seems to be way more contagious, like it's spreading
Omicron.
faster, but it doesn't seem to be as debilitating as some of the previous ones. But
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
correct. And but that
It-
doesn't mean, just because there's a new variant out there doesn't mean that the old variants go away.
right.
It's not that they're not out there. It's just that these are the ones that are spreading throughout the community, and it just depends on what community you're in of where it's spreading, and but anyway, yeah, I mean this new the Omicron, or excuse me, Omicron, or whatever the fuck it's called. That one is very, 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 very contagious, but not necessarily very, very deadly. But then again, the measure of what's deadly and what's not isn't up to you to decide as an individual, because it depends on the individual's health needs.
Right.
And
Right.
so, that's where the danger kind of comes in. And then, of course, the quicker it spreads, the more it's able to spread, the more it's able to mutate, and then we get something different. So that's also a risk. And that's more of like a long term thing that we have to think about. But yeah, anyway, it is getting bad again. I am curious about future events. I just got booked for my second event of 2022.
Really?
And I did, and I can't share too much about it yet, but I know that it's going to be March 12th in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, that
So
should
there
be.
will
I
be
mean, Google
more.
March 12th, area Pennsylvania people, and I'm sure you'll fucking connect the dots or something. Not to tell people how to cheat on that one, but
Sure, figure it out.
yeah.
Well, it's not out there yet at all, so that's okay. It's actually, I'm kind of going to be a big, big part of this event, so that's really cool. But
Okay.
anyway, I'll talk about that later. But we've got the thing coming up January 29th, in Marietta, Ohio, and I don't know, I don't know where that all is going to stand, because right now, we are, numbers wise, we're worse off in the pandemic than we have been, at
Yeah.
least here, in Ohio, we are. I don't know about the rest of the country, but I'm pretty sure that's probably about the same.
Well,
Um,
Chicago public schools are on strike. They're not. They're not going into school right now. The teachers are refusing to teach, and the cities and refusing to do remote learning, and they have a little bit of a standoff. And that's
oh,
something that we didn't really see since the beginning of all of this,
yeah,
and we're starting to see it again now.
yeah.
So it just not to get too much into the politics, but I guess I just felt like if we're really moving towards the point in all this where you're going to have to show your vaccination card to do things in a public space, not necessarily public, but like go to the movies, go to a restaurant, etc. um I feel like that's going to create a lot of division, and that is going to ratchet the tension up here. You know what I mean? Because as it stands right now, if someone's vaccinated, well, I guess not, because now you need, where I live with the paperwork, but like someone like you who's like in a state that's not enforcing that yet or doing that yet, if you are vaccinated and the person next to you at Wendy's isn't vaccinated, it's no big deal. You don't know their business, they don't know yours. You're going to go about your business, and you're going to have maybe 5 minutes worth of potential interaction, and that's it. But now with everyone being vaccinated, people that aren't, it's like I just feel like it's putting the non-vaccinated people into this pariah category. And I don't know, I feel like that's dangerous. I feel like it's gonna radicalize people. You know what I
Well, it
mean?
probably, I mean, it already has, obviously.
Yeah, but you know
We've
what? But
seen
they've
it
been able to
happen.
just bitch because like it hasn't really affected them too much. They can still go to 7-Eleven and get their fucking Bush Light. You know what I mean? But now you're going to take that away from them too. And that's where I feel like this could really all start to fucking spiral out of control. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm being too sensitive about this stuff. I certainly, like I said, I'm vaccinated. I had no problem even making a trip back home and catching a later show to prove that me and my son are vaccinated so we could go see Spider-Man. I didn't cause a big scene. I didn't yell at the clerk or anything like that. I was like, all right, whatever. And I was very cool with it. But I know not everyone's like that. And I know the script that these people read off of. And I sense that this is going to be a fucking problem. And you heard it here first. I'm prophesizing.
I mean, like I said, I've seen it locally, but maybe that's because I mean we're a swing state, right? But right now we have a Republican. Our governor is a Republican, and silly as it. Okay, it's not silly to say. Let's just be perfectly honest here. Most people that aren't vaccinated, are Republican people, and most people that are Democratic people. Which there shouldn't be a correlation there, but somehow there is. I'm very much pro-vaccination. And I think that the people that aren't, um, and I don't want to single anybody out that listens to the show, but to be honest with you, the people that aren't, I think just don't understand how it all works. And I don't hate you for it. I'll be the first one to say that. I try not to hate people. But I can tell you, I've definitely taken a big break from just reading anything about any of the COVID stuff because it has really made me very sad and has really made me open my eyes up to, just how uneducated people can be on a topic. Even though you might feel like you know things about stuff, it's very clear that you guys don't know things about stuff sometimes. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I understand where your emotions come into play. I do. I get it. But the facts are the fact. As somebody that has a career in fringe sciences, the facts are the facts. I mean, I don't know, what to tell you about it. And as far as having to show your papers and stuff, I guess let me reiterate, I don't really go anywhere. I never, I go to the grocery store and that's about it. If I go hang out with people, I'm at their house. Like, so I don't know what the movie theaters are like. I mean, I might go. I'm not. I'm gonna go watch Scream. I'm not gonna watch it this weekend though. So if I go the weekend after and I need my card, I mean, I'll have it on me. It's not a big deal. I got my shot. So I don't know if people are requiring it. I have been to a couple of restaurants, but not very many. Because I understand that we're still very much in a pandemic, and regardless of me being vaccinated or not, I'm still, immunocompromised. So,
Right.
I still don't want to drown to death, and even that, it's flu season. Flu is going around really bad right now as well. And I know this because I have family that works in the medical field that actually does these tests, flu and COVID and strep and all of them. And, flu is just as deadly to me as COVID is. And they're both very fucking deadly to somebody like me. And so therefore I don't want either of them. So during the winter months, I don't go anywhere. So I don't know. I don't know what the state of the world is like right now, because I've just kind of been ignoring it. And, I feel like that helps. I mean, I wear my mask. This whole time, didn't matter. When I got my shot, when we lifted the mask mandate, I've worn my mask the whole time. The only times that I haven't is when I've gone to these events, and that's it, which I should be wearing my mask. But other than that,
you are just a fragile little red-haired pizza puff that needs to be cuddled.
Yeah, I am.
Wrap you up in a
I am.
a warm towel.
Yeah, and if you can't cuddle me in real life in person, you could do so by sending me your money, and I will cuddle with it, and I'll even take pictures of it. But no, yeah, I am. I'm having a hard time right now, so I don't.
Yeah.
That's the least of my worries at the moment is this pandemic that's been going on for 2 years. People aren't going to get it. The people that don't want to get it aren't going to get it. And what I mean is that they're not going to understand because they don't want to. And that's, you know what, that is your right to do. I disagree with you, but I still love you and I wish you the best. So there's my soapbox about it all.
Fair enough.
I don't want anything. I don't want you to get it or anything. I'm not like, oh, I wish these people died of COVID. No, I'm not that person. I understand that you are a very emotional person and you are entitled to your opinion, even if your opinion is wrong. It's okay. But that's my piece about it. So that's what I got. Um, anyway, anything else you want to share before I get into this news?
Oh, jeez. No.
I'll go to a fun one. I'll do the fun
Thank you.
ones. I'll do the fun ones. Okay, so this lady named Kitten K Sarah, she's officially the first person to marry a color,
Which color did she pick?
pink.
All
She got
right.
married to the color pink.
Okay.
She had a Vegas. They had a Vegas wedding. You know, she had her beautiful pink wedding dress and whatnot. She said that the idea came to her about 2 years ago when a kid on the skateboard was like, "Geez, you really like the color pink, don't you?" And she was like, "Yeah." So the kid said, "Can you guess what the kid said?"
Why don't you marry it?
Yeah, and she said, "This is what her thought process was. Well, he's on to something." So she decided to get married to the color pink. And now her and Pink, I guess, will have a very happy life. When kind of asked about it further, she just said, I mean, she was quoted as saying, she said, "Have fun with it, have a ball. You're only here for a little bit of time. Have a blast." So I did a little bit of digging more into into this lady. I came across this story from NPR actually,
Wow.
and and I thought that it was weird enough to share on the show because it is strange. I think it's weird when people marry inanimate objects. I think that you probably shouldn't be allowed to marry anything unless it can explicitly give consent. But that's just me.
Sure.
But you know, after digging into her a little bit more, it seems like she's making some type of movie, and she was mentioning that like some parts of the filming of her wedding is going to be in this movie. So I think it's just a marketing thing. Some type of publicity stunt to raise awareness to who she is and what she does. So, but good for her. I mean, that's a good way to get people's attention. Come across as a crazy lady that marries ideas instead of people. That's okay. You can do what you would do. Like she says, have a blast. So there's my opinion. Pat, any thoughts on the crazy pink lady?
I am not wasting a single iota of energy disapproving or being angry at anyone about anything
Okay,
in this next phase of my life.
perfect.
I God bless you.
I mean,
And
that's what I say, right? She's not hurting anybody, so who cares? It's
who
strange.
fucking cares? I mean,
It's weird, but and that's what we talk about here. But I don't hate her for it. Good for her.
right.
She found true love.
I think I think I get more of a I get more of a rise watching the people that like lose their shit about this. Like this doesn't bother me. But it doesn't bring me like I don't feel like liberated or anything. I feel like somebody's making a statement that I don't quite understand, and it's fine. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And it's like overhearing a conversation in Spanish. Well, actually, I speak Spanish. So that's a bad example, German or something. But I think that the people that are gonna like I would enjoy reading the comments on this if I came across this article on the internet, just because of all the crazy like uh, right wing people that would like lose their shit that someone was able to do this and how it
yeah.
destroys the fucking sanctity of marriage or
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
Like that I would take enjoyment in reading and kind of watching spectating their outrage. But as far as my relationship with this, like yeah, whatever.
yeah.
You know.
Pretty much. That's how I feel about it. Pretty cool. Good for her. She's living her best life. And you know what? If that's what makes her happy, then that's what makes her happy. It's
Right.
okay.
And pink's not a
Um,
bad color. So
pink's all right. So
you
that's
picked a good
great.
one.
Good for her. A company called Potion is their name. They are trying to figure out and bottle and sell the smell of happiness. So, whenever you feel happy or anything, any emotion, it's a chemical reaction, and so they want to create a product that chemically reacts to your brain, so you can sniff it, and you instantly get a shot of happy.
Clinique already did that in the 90s.
Did they?
Yeah, there was a perfume called Happy, and a lot of the
What?
girls that I used to fool around with would wear it, and whenever I smell it, it makes me think of happier times. when it was socially acceptable to bang 16-year-olds.
Stop it.
Makes me
Oh
think of
my
16-year-old cleavage.
God.
Yeah.
Don't say this.
What? It was back then. It was fine. I'm talking about doing it now.
Well, now it's not. Okay, good. That's
No, it's not. It's not cool anymore. But back then it
don't do
was.
it. But back when it was cool, they all
Right.
were happy.
Yeah.
No, it is kind of. I found it interesting because like one little like factoid that I know about is that like you can actually get the same effect by smelling oranges. Oranges are scientifically proven to automatically boost your mood. So if
Makes
you are
sense.
feeling sad, right? If you are, I mean, there's some type of bullshit science behind it, but you know, legit, no, it's real. If you're feeling sad, go smell you some orange. Also chocolate, eating chocolate supposedly, which I think is bullshit. I've eaten so much chocolate while sad, and it doesn't. I guess I'm glad I have chocolate, but like I don't know. But that's why people get addicted to things like that. Or they say like chocolate's addictive is because it releases dopamine, which makes you feel good. So there's that. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to buy this happiness in a bottle, but I don't know. We've all hit points in our life where we're willing to try anything. So let's just see how low it gets first, and then I'll decide if I'm going to buy it.
I'll definitely vouch for Clinique Happy, but we'll see about this. The jury's still out. Or
Pato
CK1.
recommends.
You ever wear CK1? Are you familiar with that, or is that before your time?
I'm familiar with CK1, but
CK1 was the other big one. That's what all the senior year hoes were.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Good for you.
Yeah.
We I don't think we had like maybe we did have like special smells that were a big thing. I feel like by the time I hit teenage years, it was kind of just a free for all. There was so much available to us. I don't know. But that was interesting. So, a couple little fun, silly stories. Now we're going to talk about this other thing that happened on December 30th. That a lot of people are talking about. And Pat, you probably have come across this because it's been a hot story. A couple guys working at the Chicago O'Hare Airport, 4 of them, as a matter of fact, allegedly saw Mothman. Well, as a matter of fact, they saw Mothmen and maybe moth ladies. I don't know. One person came forward and said, listen, there was a group of us. We work at the airport. We were outside doing our outside airport job or whatever. And we saw these 3, black winged figures just kind of hanging around. It was nighttime outside, but they were so black that you could see them because of how dark they were compared to the background of just the sky and whatnot. And they had these glowing red eyes, and they all took off. Well, apparently they were all standing around, and the workers watching these things were taking video. And while they were taking video, they said that a security guard ran out at them and like demanded them to immediately stop filming and put away their phones. And then within about 10 minutes, they were kind of whisked away by some higher ups. And they said, listen, you are going to delete these videos and you're never going to talk about it ever again, or we're going to fire you. And they were like, oh, so allegedly, rather, they all deleted the video. And, they said that what they were told about it was that this was a matter of internal security, and that it superseded the authority of the union, which are all union workers there. The guy that's come forward said that he has spoken with the union to try to figure out if this was legal or, if what the grounds are for that. And then they still have continual check-ins from their higher ups who continue to be like, oh, you haven't told anybody yet, have you? Don't do that or we'll fire you. And other people have allegedly lost their jobs for coming forward and admitting to having these Mothman sightings and telling people about it. So weird kind of cover up. Now, this was reported via UFO Clearinghouse. And the person that runs it is kind of the person that seems to get all of the reports about the Chicago O'Hare sightings. And which is interesting because he's got like intel. He says this person checks out. So it's a very credible source, to the best of their knowledge. But I got some problems here. Pat, why don't you go ahead and share your side of it?
I feel like I should be more active in this. I mean, it's like right in my backyard.
I know, you're right there.
I know so many people that work at O'Hare too in different capacities that like I feel like this is if anything, this motivated me to maybe be a little bit more of a. I should really look into this.
I need you to question those people for me. Yeah, that's. I
Well,
mean, why have you
maybe
not
not
done
these
this yet?
people specifically, because there's tinges and bullshit about what they're saying. But because first of all, obviously they have not kept their mouth shut because we're talking about this fucking story. So like, hello, higher ups, the three men that you accosted and had delete their cell phone
Exactly.
videos on December 30th have obviously gone public with their fucking story. So
Right.
way to fuck that one up. Um, you know, there's a lot of to kind of digest here. And I think number one is that I know you're doing the Mothman thing, and I really do need to talk to a lot of people that I know that work at O'Hare about this stuff and see how wide, because I know on our side as people that read like the paranormal press how prevalent this stuff is, but for your average baggage handler or for your average maintenance engineer, what is their perception of these events
Right.
as it's talked about internally amongst the employees? Forget about the people that go
Yeah.
to these websites and make these reports. What are they just saying in the break room between second shift and third shift? You know what I mean? Like, what are the guys saying? And I know that was kind of sexist of me to phrase it like that, but you know what the fuck I'm saying. So I think I'm gonna do a little bit of digging on my end, because that would be very easy to do. That would just be a handful of text messages, and
Yeah.
I could really get some. I could have some conversations with people.
I mean, I wouldn't even come in hot. I'd just be like, "Hey, what about this Mothman shit going
No,
on over
exactly, because
there?"
there's people. I trust me. I know somebody that works there very well that would tell me everything she know, and as little or as much as there is to it. You know what I mean? Like, put it
Right.
like that.
Well, and you're right about that. I mean, how many? If there, okay, let's just say there are. Let's say Mothman is hanging out down by the airport, right?
Well,
And he is, people are seeing him, and these sightings are legitimate. Sorry, my cat's coughing. He'll be done shortly, I guess. Anyway, if let's just say that they're real, how many of them are going underreported because nobody knows where to report these things to because they're not investigators. They're not already into this stuff. They don't know where to go and who to talk to about it. I would be curious about that figure. But as far as this story by itself goes, I have a lot of issues with it. I mean, like
I
you
do
said,
too.
there's enough identifying factors for the supervisors to be like, okay, so you fucking squealed and told your story.
Well, I think the emergence of the supervisors too kind of draws a line about whether or not this is paranormal or something else, or like secret science or something, because for the supervisors to leap into action immediately like that to me says that there might have been some kind of government project or operation or something that was going on, and or just top secret, you know what I mean, like.
And they
And
knew, right? They know that this is going on.
right, and that these people kind of were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that they witnessed it, and because if it was like an actual like Mothman, like the supernatural being, like how the fuck did the supervisors know about it? Did Mothman you know what I mean, like were they
Mothman's like, don't let them tell people about me.
all looking out the same window like that? That
Yeah,
to me is more confusing and raises more questions, and
right.
which, hey, some if you want the answer, sometimes you got to ask a lot more
And
questions
3
and
of
uncomfortable.
them, 3 of them. There's a guy that goes around telling people, you know what? There's this guy who tells these terrible fake stories online, and a lot of people here that listen to the show probably listen to a show, but like allegedly had a story of like this old military personnel, and like the guy tells stories about like how he fought off like I don't know 20 dogmen or something with just like a pocket knife or some shit. Like that's not real. That didn't happen. So when you
Right.
tell me that you saw 3 Mothmen, that probably didn't happen. For one, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's just weird. None of the other reports are like that. So why this one? And then on top of that, like you said, how are they so on top of coming out, rushing out, and be like, no, stop this?
Right, and that because their involvement, their immediate response, this kind of like throws out the window that it could have been a misidentified biological entity, like the fucking big birds that float around out there and shit.
Sure.
It means that it was something that something secret, be it paranormal or military, that was known and that was known to be operating in that area. I wonder who their, I also wonder who their supervisors were. Like, was it, was it some kind of fucking general, or was it like, the shift supervisor for the baggage handlers or
Right.
some shit? You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
like, oh, this guy
Exactly.
knows. This guy gets to know what the fuck is happening. Like, he's making
Right.
$1.25 more an hour. You know what I mean? Like, he's been here 6 months longer than me.
Yeah. Well, and then also, that is motive. I mean, that is another thing I've thought of. Like, why would they want to cover this up? Like, and that doesn't make much sense. Now, granted, we have had instances of the Men in Black visiting people that have seen the Mothman, but not always, not every time, which is weird. So then, like, you could safely kind of say maybe, okay, well, maybe the Men in Black only visits people that they know really did have a sighting, but like, and maybe those ones are bullshit, and that's why the Men in Black didn't get involved. But like, I saw the Mothman, and I've never been visited by a Men in Black. And I hope it does happen. I wish they would come and threaten me. Bring it on, Men in Black. I'm threatening you. That's I'm telling you, come to my house. You know, but what would the motive be? It's not like every single person that's ever seen the Mothman has been silenced. And then and then on top of that, okay, so all this happens, right? And they rush in, they go, no, delete that right now. You don't like have a thought and go, maybe I should just email this to somebody or myself or send it to somebody else real quick. You don't think about that. And also, just because you delete a file off of a phone doesn't mean that it's gone forever, because it's not. You telling me out of all four of the people that had film of this thing, not one of them has any type of backup or cloud services on their
Why
phone?
wouldn't you just take their phone too? That's the other thing. Is that
Right. Just take the whole
why?
thing,
Yeah,
because that's
that's
the only way that you
sloppy.
can
The whole
really.
thing, this
It doesn't
whole
make
like,
sense.
yeah, this whole plot line of this whole subplot of like, supervisor response is just very sloppy and kind of thrown together. I just texted somebody that works at O'Hare to ask if they'll
Great.
if they'd want to talk about it.
That'd
But
be great.
yeah,
But yeah.
I don't know, man. I think anything where you have this many stories come out of one location, I think there's some legit ones. I think there's some misidentified ones, and I think there's some bullshit ones. You
Well,
know.
not the eerie thing about it, but the sad part about it is that the person who was reporting this, again, has been the person who has been kind of dishing out all of these O'Hare Airport sightings. So then, and now I've never met this guy. I've never talked to him. I'm not saying that he's a liar, but he's saying that this is a credible source. I mean, these people, they have the sighting and they go to the one person who's pushing out all these Mothman reports from the Chicago O'Hare Airport area. So to me, it sounds like this guy's now in cahoots with the story. You know what I mean? So it sounds like he's lying. And, so is he lying? So then does that mean we need to question the other reports from the airport? I don't know how deep that rabbit hole goes. I mean, I'm not going to let one sighting that seems very unrealistic to, cloud my judgment, be like, okay, it's totally fake, which we'll talk about in tonight's episode, really a lot of.
Yeah.
And, but, at the same time, me as an investigator, as somebody who, has specialty in the Mothman, I wonder now, so I would like to talk to this guy, and I'm going to be reaching out to him, for as a, one professional to another, and having some words. And
When you do come out here to do your Mothman investigations, I think that it's kind of like, I'm one of those people that compartmentalizes like what's going on in my life. Like, I don't think about things until I have to do them. I don't worry about the test until the day of. I don't worry about like the doctor's appointment until I'm sitting in the waiting room. You know what I mean? So I guess I haven't really put too much thought into the fact that you're doing this documentary, and a big part of your documentary, which you've stated several times, is going to involve you coming out here and doing all the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff. You know, as someone that lives here, like, I'm actually kind of starting to get excited about that because there's a lot. I know a lot of the people in these areas, and I know a lot of the O'Hare stuff I could definitely help out with. And even some of the Lake Michigan stuff, like when they talk about the different areas. I know one of the things that Tobias has said is that he's willing to dismiss some of the sightings as just local wildlife. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's something that I've had. One of the areas that I used to work in has those giant birds with those creepy fucking eyes. You know what I'm talking about? They look like monsters.
Sure. You mean owls? I don't know
No,
what
I
you
don't know if it's a
what you-
sandhill crane. I don't know if that's it, but like, I don't know,
Okay.
man. But fucking forget I said anything. It's we'll
It could be
just
those giant birds.
yeah. I think that I have a lot of faith that when it's your turn to investigate this stuff, that you're actually going to get to the bottom of this stuff. You'll get to the bottom
Okay.
of it, and that
Yeah.
I can definitely help with that. And we'll finally, if these stories are bullshit, we'll put an end to them. And
Well,
if
and like,
there's
I mean, look at that. I mean, my documentary is not finished, right? It's an ongoing investigation. This is a prime example of why something like this takes so long, is because this is a new development now within the investigation itself and within the documentary itself. If I would have just finished it and I would have been in post already, then I would have had to go back and fucking refilm because my theory would have changed. And now, granted, it's never going to be perfect unless I do find the Mothman somehow. You know what I mean? Unless I actually do find him, it's never going to be done. But this is kind of a big deal. I mean, now like I said, are all of the O'Hare sightings bullshit? I don't know. I'm going to try to figure that out. As far as I know, this guy who does all this stuff, who, and I'm not going to say his name, but the guy who compiles these sightings, he's local to the area. So I'm going to try to come talk to him when we come down there. But I want to talk to him before that point because I'm just going to be level with him. Be like, listen, guy, if this is bullshit, I'm smelling it already. You don't want to do this. My
no, give me 5 minutes. I'll be like, hey, what high school did you go to? What parish are you from? Where are you from? Fucking, you're the Mothman guy in Chicago. I'll vet him. Figure out who he knows.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? What do you know?
We'll figure it out. But no, anyway, a lot of people keep asking about my opinion on this. I was going to make a post about it, and then I remembered, well, fuck, I do a weekly podcast. I'll just share it on there. So
Right.
there it is. There's my hot take. I think that this sighting is bullshit, and there's really nothing to it. It's interesting. Well, that's what I'm saying. The guy who's been compiling this stuff said that there have been other reports of people being threatened with their jobs and things like that. And I've not really heard anything like that, which is
Well, I'll
weird.
look into that too. I mean, that
Yeah,
might be
I
the
want to know.
case. Yeah.
I want to know. I mean, I know some people don't want to talk about this stuff at their regular jobs, and I understand that. Because there is still a stigma behind these things. And you don't want to lose your credibility, and that's an issue. But like, if you're just grabbing on people's packages at the airport, I mean, you really got much credibility to begin with. And not knocking people that work at the airport or anything like
Yeah,
that.
don't
But
do
like,
that. Don't do that. Don't say that shit.
but you're not, but you're not, a scientist in a leading lab, or you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. But maybe you do. Maybe you listen to the show and you're in Chicago and you saw the Mothman and you work at the airport and you go to the airport every day or something, and you're scared to lose your job. Come talk to me privately. I'm not going to spill your beans everywhere. That's not what I'm here for. But if there's something to it, let me know what there is and why you, as the low man on the totem pole, why they would be so afraid of letting you talk to people, because I don't get that. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious. So anyway, there's that. Anything else you want to say about the recent Chicago Mothman?
Nope.
Okay.
No one asked my permission. It's been done without my authorization. I'm very upset about it. You know how I feel about people invading my city.
That's true. You don't like that. That's true.
No.
All right. Well, so I'm excited. I'm excited about tonight's episode. I think that you guys will also be excited about tonight's episode because we're going to be talking about the Loch Ness monster.
Right.
And now, Pat, this is one you wanted to talk about for a long time.
Yeah, because it's really up there with Bigfoot as like the OG of cryptozoology. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think if you talk to little kids and you kind of, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just thinking about my own fucking weird childhood, but it seems like the Loch Ness monster is one of the first ones to kind of get on your radar. It's very benign. It's Nessie. It's and it's kind of for those reasons that I never had too much interest in it. It wasn't very sexy. There was no chance of it killing me or eating people or kidnapping them and never bringing them back. It was just a potential, dinosaur that lived in a lake somewhere in Scotland. Like, it was interesting to me as a kid, but it didn't really grab me. It's not something that I poured over. So I was more into aliens because there was, a sense of danger there. So I felt that I had to read and I had to learn more to protect myself. But Nessie's still here after all these years. And I think that one of the things that I learned from going into doing the research for this this week's episode is that there are a lot of interesting aspects to this story, that maybe not a lot of people know of, but there's a lot that could be potentially learned here about, the way that the Earth was formed and things that I don't know. I guess we could get into the glaciers and the that valley and how it connects to the sea and all that shit like that. There's some interesting aspects to this story, especially if you look at the first sighting too, which has this weird religious angle to it, which I didn't know about, and kind of the ties to St. Patrick, which of course I was named after. But
were you?
yeah. My due date was St. Patrick's Day, and I was late, and it came out on April Fool's Day. But
you're like, just kidding.
Yeah,
April Fools.
Like, why am I trying to get out of here? I'm gonna spend the rest of my life trying to get back in.
Right.
So fucking just
fucking
chill.
joke's on you, buddy. No, yeah, Nessie is, one of the big ones. I agree, obviously. Nessie's kind of one of those ones that, I agree with you, isn't very sexy, gets boring after a while. But it's very nostalgic for people that are into this type of stuff because, it's most likely one of the first cryptids, right, that you've ever heard of. And, I know for me, that's what it was. My first encounter, my first, not encounter, but experience in this world was Patterson-Gimlin film. And my second was a surgeon's photograph. And, again, little me couldn't believe my eyes that this thing was here and there's a picture of it and nobody believed it. From there, I mean, I'll say this. Nessie is between Bigfoot and Nessie. Maybe we should do like I guess a tier list. I don't know, or something like that of like the best cryptids. I don't know, but maybe we'll do that with like a Patreon or something one day. Maybe I'll just do it just because. But Nessie is probably I like Nessie more. Nessie's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I like lake monsters and, things like that. I like things in the ocean. Those are, I'm sure I've mentioned this many times before, but yeah, Nessie's one of my favorites, because it's just it's really not that, it's very bizarre, but it's not that bizarre. And, the reason why it's not that bizarre is because they have, capitalized on it and made it kind of this big touristy gimmicky thing. But scientifically speaking, there's a lot of things that don't add up that do seem extremely credible, that goes against the grain of our natural science and kind of, what we believe. So, if you don't know, Nessie is allegedly a giant creature in Loch Ness, and she most of the time is depicted as looking like a plesiosaur is kind of the general idea. And it's been around for a long time, Pat, like you said, and it's not really that is like the first sighting of it. It's just that it's one of the first recorded sightings of it. You were talking about, I think it was back in like the year 500 or some crazy shit like that. 500 and something, which who knows what the world was like then. And I think like I don't remember the names and stuff. Maybe you put them down. I don't know. Some guy allegedly got attacked by this beast in the water. And, well, you go ahead. You tell it because I'm just screwing it up right now.
Okay. St. Columba. So, there was it was the saint, and they were crossing the so loch means lake, okay? So it's the Lake Ness, right? And just for like a to wrap your head around it, Loch Ness is probably like it's 263 billion cubic feet of water, and Lake Michigan is 1100,000 cubic. No, that's not right. It's fucking big. Okay. It's very, very big. It's a very fucking big lake. All right. And
super big.
Yeah, it's super big, dude. It's fucking huge. And man, you just fucking dumped this on me.
I know.
Let's do it. No, that's fine. So St. Columba. So St. Columba.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
and they were swimming in the river, okay, and one of his followers went out to was like being like pulled down in the boat, right? Or it was like being pulled down in the water, and he sent another one of his followers out in a boat to try to help him out, and then he went down too.
Yeah.
So then Columbo went out, and this was one of the miracles that he performed. Is that he went out on a boat to where these two men were being accosted by this creature in the water, and he did the sign of the cross and said, "Go no further. Do not touch the man. Go back at once." And the creature stopped and fled, and they were able to rescue the two people. So this was like uh, the first like sighting of something going on in this lake, right? But this also is something that in the legends of Saint Patrick, who chased the snakes out of Ireland. This is also something that he supposedly did, which is like chase out the water beasts that were inhabiting like the lakes and streams like around Ireland. English and like in like United Kingdom folklore have like there's a lot of this shit about like these water horses, and that's not necessarily what this is, and nobody confuses the two necessarily, but it's just like water beasts are more of a common thing than they are in the United States for them, right?
Yeah.
And we have bodies of water here, you know what I mean? Like it's not that like look at fucking Minnesota, it's the land of 10,000 lakes. Like it's not that we don't have fresh water and bodies of water here in the United States, but it's just not as prevalent as it is in the UK. Maybe that's because it's an island, maybe it's because it's a landmass formed by glaciers that fucking drop shit in the fucking water. Who knows, right? But that area and those countries have a very rich tradition of supernatural water beings. And Nessie, that lake, Loch Ness, that was the first encounter, I guess, or incident attributed to that body of water.
It was the first recorded. I mean, and so that's like the first literally the first recorded in literature was that incident all the way back in 500. Okay, and so and
Mm.
prior to that, there's way more to it. There's this thing has basically been around forever. Now, granted, it's not always been described as looking like a plesiosaur. Like Pat was mentioning, there's, water spirits and things like that in Celtic religion. Yeah, there are, and they're called kelpies. And kelpies are more of a, like a horse headed mermaid, like a horse mermaid thing. And we actually have an example of that in North America, known as Caddy. It's Caborosaurus. And Caddy's probably my favorite. But it's like a horse-headed serpent, and maybe one day we'll talk about Caddy. But you know, that's not it. So just because something is called horse-headed didn't necessarily mean it was very literal either. I mean, it could have been this kind of long-necked, with a big head. I mean, I could definitely see how they could describe a plesiosaur as having a horse head. But I don't know. Either way, there's a lot of history surrounding this thing. But Nessie, as we know it now, did not really get popular until the 1930s. And, that is when things really boomed. Not that there wasn't sightings predating this, because there absolutely were, but we
Mm-hmm.
didn't start calling it Nessie until the 1930s. And then, popularizing it and making it what it is now. And truth be told, that's more so what I'm not really good at history being, predating the 1900s, to be perfectly honest with you. That's what I have Anne for. And that's her job. But I am very familiar with the more recent sightings. One of my favorite sightings, and I actually just posted because we just hit one of the anniversaries of one of these sightings a couple days ago. And my favorite is when people report this thing walking around, on land. And one of the first really big sightings about this was with George Spicer and apparently his wife. Were driving down the road or something, and this large creature just crosses the road in front of them. And basically what they had described pretty much was a plesiosaur. And this story ended up getting really big. It blew up. And then there was also Arthur Grant, who that was the anniversary that we just had in 1934. He was a vet student who, very similar experience. He was driving down the road and this thing crossed. It was kind of like trying to cross. It was like walking away from the lock, and then like it saw him and it turned back around and went back down, and he tried to like chase it, but when he got to the water, it was gone. It was already in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And he described it as looking like a cross between an otter and a plesiosaur. Now, of course, a lot of people think that, well, he just saw an otter, but we're talking this thing is like 12 to 25 feet in length,
Right.
and the guy, Grant, he, again, he's a veterinary student. Like I'm sure he knows what otters look like. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But in between that time, we had the Hugh Gray photo, which a lot of people don't talk about, because it's really written off as a hoax, and that was taken in 1933, and it's not a good picture. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It just looks like some steam coming off the water, and I've probably shared some of these for marketing this episode, or maybe I will later, whatever. I make promises I can't keep all the time, so but but the Hugh Gray photo is like, a lot of people believe that if you look at it, it's just a blurry picture, and you can see that it's actually a picture of a dog with a stick in its mouth. Pat, have you seen the Hugh Gray picture?
Yeah, of
And
course.
right, and so when you that is what it looks like. It looks like a dog. At first glance, you're like, how the fuck does anybody see a dog in that? But then when you actually look at it, you're like, oh, okay, I see it now. Now, the weird thing about it is that if you look at the dog, and I asked you what type of dog that is, you could even name it. You'd say, that's a lab. That's a Labrador Retriever. Well, Hugh was walking around the loch that day with his lab when he took this picture. So that guy is probably full of shit, and that's probably not real. But then we had the emergence of the surgeon's photograph, which is, again, the famous picture. When you think of Nessie, that is the first image that pops into your head, is
Mm-hmm.
the surgeon's photograph. And this was taken by well, we found out later. Initially, when the guy took the pictures, he wanted to remain anonymous. His identity got out, whatever. It was taken by a vagina doctor. And for real, as a gynecologist, um, Robert Kenneth Wilson, and he says he was just down there at the lock one day. He saw it. He actually took 4 pictures, 2 of which were basically useless, and then the other 2 ended up coming out. Now, let me tell you, I had a hell of a time. Even though I've seen both of them, I had a really hard time finding the second picture. And it is difficult to come across, because if you look up surgeon's photograph, or you even look up the guy's name and look up his picture, it's hard to find. It was kind of, I believe it was lost for a long time. It was published once before, and then people just didn't like it because it was blurry and the other one was clear. But the surgeon's photograph was a big deal. He's ended up selling it to the Daily Mail, and then people have analyzed this over and over and over again, and basically people have decided that the surgeon's photograph is a hoax. And a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, that picture's not real, it's a hoax. He took a toy boat and made a mold, and actually the story is that it was a group of a whole nother group of guys that took a toy boat and put like a head mold on it, and then took pictures of it in the water. And you can tell this because in the actual photograph, surgeon's photograph, there's more to the picture, and if you compare the size of the body of it compared to like what's up on shore, it doesn't match up. And then they ended up giving the pictures to Wilson, who then took the pictures and sold them to a publication because he thought it was fun and funny and whatever. Um, but what I can tell you definitively is that that story's never been proven. Nobody has ever come out and said, we are the guys that did this for
Mm-hmm.
sure. This is just kind of a maybe, possibly, might be. So when people automatically write off the surgeon's photograph as this big hoax, we really don't know that. Let's take a pause for a moment, Pat. I'm sure you've seen surgeon's photograph.
I think I'm at the point where I don't I don't obsess over individual pieces of evidence, because at the end of the day, you look at the picture, and you believe what you want to believe, and someone else has an opinion, and they can say that they can prove that the picture's fake, and then someone else is going to come in and say that it's not. I think what you have to do is you have to look at the overall narrative and say, does it make sense? And when I look at the Nessie narrative, it makes sense to me. Okay, given the location of this body of water, given its connection to the ocean, how massive this body of water is, how it was formed, the fact that there's underground faults in that area, underground cave systems, it is entirely possible to me that there could be a creature of this size, prehistoric creature of this size, still living in that area, or a whole family of them, generations of them, whatever, right? So, if you're going to pull a fucking random, and I don't mean to be flippant towards you, but I'm just saying in general, someone shows up with a picture and that picture ends up being bullshit, it doesn't change the fact that it's still entirely possible that somebody could live in that area.
You're right.
Right.
I agree with that.
And because somebody tries to disprove some picture or some piece of evidence 50 years after the fact, that doesn't reshape the whole narrative to me. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, we will not. I mean, just like with the Patterson Gimlin film. Well, I mean, I guess Gimlin's, he's still alive, so he could die and on his deathbed confess or whatever. But with this, we will never know. We will never know if.
Yeah,
if
and I think that if when it comes down to it, there's creatures out there that will go through their whole entire life cycle and never have a picture taken of them. There are cryptids out there that will live and die and will never even know their names.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So the fact that there's, so much evidence about this one in this one location, and some of that evidence may one day be proven to be bullshit, that doesn't tank the whole thing for me.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, and I see what you're saying. The sexy part of it for you is the possibilities because of the science to it. But the sexy part for a lot of people in these things, Pat, is the video evidence and picture evidence and things like that.
I think you're hitching your wagon to the wrong, but I think you're hitching your wagon to the wrong star when you do that, because that stuff that stuff can be disproven super easy, and it can just be argued. It can be argued back and forth ad nausea to no end. To know, I think what you have to do is you have to look at what we do know and what is true about that area and the geography and the ecosystem there. And then extrapolate what could be true, listen to all these stories, listen to all these, look at all this smoke and say, okay, is there enough for me to believe that there's a fire?
Right.
And, I've come to the conclusion that I think there is. And, I invite our listeners to make up your own mind, but,
okay.
And then call us and tell us about it. 773-59-WEIRD.
Let me get through the self-proclaimed sexy evidence, and then we'll get on to the real evidence. How about that?
Sure.
I'm almost done. Oh, well, and I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of these instances, you guys, of these purported pictures and videos.
Lots of pictures, lots of film, lots of stuff. Yeah,
lots. Most of the time, it's just a black spot in the water. All of the time, 100% can confirm that there is a black spot epidemic happening at Loch Ness because it is constant. So that is real. You can definitely believe in that. But that's basically, I mean, I think it is important though to note about the surgeon's photograph, because there is a lot of misinformation out there about it. It's not 100% been proven fake. It's not 100% been proven real. It is still up for grabs on whether or not you think you are allowed to believe that that's a real photograph, and nobody in the community should look at you differently for it because it has never been proven to be a hoax. So there's that. But there's also a lost piece of video footage from Nessie, which I thought was interesting. That was taken by a man he went by G.E. Taylor, and he was actually a tourist. And he was there in 1938 and took a really long piece of video footage. Took the footage, gave it to Maurice Burton, who is a big Nessie researcher, really, really popular if you really follow Nessie stuff. And Burton never showed it to anybody. Never showed anybody that evidence. He took one still from the video and published it in his 1961 book, The Elusive Monster, and that was it. The video is now lost forever, so there's some Nessie lost media. But people are on the hunt trying to find it. Is it going to be the smoking gun? I'm going to tell you what it is. it's a black blob in in Loch Ness. So, you know, if you want to, waste your time looking for it, that's fine. I guess it's just kind of a fun fact that it's out there. But the first sonar reading of evidence for Nessie. Well, hold on. You know what? I'll get into that, and then we'll take that and lead into, because I think that there's something to these sonars. I won't do that yet. Um, there was something called the Dinsdale film that was taken in 1960, which a documentary done by the Discovery Channel known as Loch Ness Discovered that came out in 1993. This piece of evidence, again, and you could watch the Dinsdale film. It is just a black spot. But when the people analyzed it for the Discovery documentary, allegedly, it made those video people believers, because they said that there was, to the naked eye, there was a shadow there that you couldn't see before, which indicates that there's a body moving underneath that black blob, which was massive. And therefore, it really blew their mind. Now, the 1993 that documentary was also the one who definitively said and got the word out there that the surgeon's photograph was fake. So it's not like it was geared towards Nessie as absolutely real. It was pretty neutral on the fact, and could have easily have said the same thing about the Dinsdale footage, but didn't. Even though it doesn't look as good as a surgeon's photograph, they're dead set that this is real, actual proof of Nessie. But let's kind of, like I said, go back into more of the real stuff. The first sonar images of something anomalous happening in the loch, happened in, it looks like this is 1954. And a large object was keeping up pace with a boat for nearly 3,000 miles, and it was taking place. It was about 400 feet deep down into the loch, keeping up with the boat. It didn't really say how big it was or anything like that. But that was kind of the first time we got some type of indication that, well, fuck, maybe there is something in this lake. And then we have continued to get stories of these sonar images and things like that happening within the loch that don't really make much sense. Some people come out and say that it could possibly be algae, but algae is not going to keep up with a boat like that. So
exactly.
That's not a good, that's the fucking weather balloon of cryptids right there. Like, it wasn't algae. So yeah. So Pat, you really want to talk about kind of the demographic and things like that. Seems like you got some facts there, do you?
No,
No?
absolutely
Yeah.
not. No,
Yeah.
no. I'm just looking at a map, and it's a big lake, and
Big
the
lake.
north part of the lake connects to the ocean.
Yeah. It goes, well, it's different.
The
It's
North
different.
Sea, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the North Atlantic Ocean, and there are fault lines underneath that whole area.
Oh, yeah.
That go very deep and that can be seen from space. And the lakes there are formed, and this is something that just kind of fascinates me in general, because it's the same way that the Great Lakes are formed here in the Midwest, but they're formed from glaciers moving down from Antarctica that just melted, and kind of as they came down, they like left like a snail trail and formed these lakes along the way. And I
Yeah.
always thought that was really neat, especially if you've ever seen movies like The Thing or read H.P. Lovecraft stories where, there's like monsters and aliens buried in the ice. This idea that like they could be like dragged down into the Great Lakes and then deposited, or, Loch Ness or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. That to me is like, now you're getting in stuff that I want to believe. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Right.
cool. Like sci-fi, like that's a narrative. That's what I need, I think, is that you can have all these facts and you can have all these pictures, but if you don't have a narrative, you're not going to grab people. And that's where I think, like, when I shit on the whole the modern day ufology stuff, is that there's no more coherent narrative. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just a bunch of people screaming out different shit, and none of it makes sense, and there's no story there. And if there's not a story, if you can't sell me on the story, then what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? You're showing me some
Yeah.
blurry footage and you're telling me to come up with my own fucking explanation. I don't want that. You know what I mean? I want a narrative. I want a story here. And the story about why there would be a Loch Ness monster, kind of like when we were talking about the moon landing last week, and we were like, yeah, there's evidence, and there's the sea rock, and there's this, and there's Van Allen belts and all this shit. But if you look at it, which is, I don't know if we want to get back into all that stuff again. in your black and white picture. Oh God, fucking October 2019 on Instagram.
Whatever.
That there's the narrative makes sense for why we would fake the moon landing. Forget about the evidence for a second. It makes sense why we would do it. The story makes sense. The story for the Loch Ness Monster makes sense. You know what I mean? How there could be something living there, why it would live there undetected, mostly undetected for so long. All that stuff makes sense for me. So do I have a bunch of fucking facts? No, I botched the cubic feet thing. I ain't trying to do that again. But I buy off on it. I believe it. And I'm considered the skeptic of this show. Okay. So
well, and that's true. That's a good point. And I obviously I agree with you there. I think that a couple of things with these cryptids needs to make sense. Like Nessie is a cryptid in the way that not in the way that like Mothman is a cryptid. I don't think Mothman's really a cryptid. Nessie is a flesh and blood, an animal that we just haven't quite been able to pinpoint and go, yes, this is real without a shadow of a doubt. No bodies have washed up, and because of that, it is very interesting. Now I've had a theory that Nessie leaves and then comes back, whether for breeding or who knows why this thing leaves and comes back. But I've mentioned it before, we've talked about it before, because we had a lot of Nessie sightings in 2021, and it almost was a record-breaking year. The sightings have continued to ramp up. Why is that? And eventually, guess what? They're going to decline because Nessie sightings have done that since there's been a Nessie, and it's what it seems to be anyway, that there's a pattern that this thing goes up and it goes back down. But like I said, I remember back in like the late 2000s rather, when, there was a theory that Nessie, could have passed away or was extinct when extinct wasn't around anymore because the sightings were just so few and far in between. And then all of a sudden they started back up again and they started increasing every year from year to year. And then now they're staying pretty steady. Yes, lakes feed into the rivers that feed into the ocean. That's just the way it is. So could this thing come in and out? Yes, it could. And we've got other evidence of things like this happening. It's not far-fetched. It's possible to find a shark in the river because they do end up in the rivers. Do they live very long? No, they don't. But they will use river systems to travel and get to where they need to go. We've seen other animals do this. But could something like Nessie, whatever it might be, could it potentially live fine and thrive in freshwater and saltwater? Sure, why not? We wouldn't know until we catch it and we see it in action that it could or couldn't. It's not impossible, is what I'm saying. And that's my theory on it, is that it has to leave. It has to be able to leave. But not just that. Again, we talked about it. Loch Ness is big. And I don't think people understand. You say a lake, and I don't think people really understand just how fucking big it is. It is huge, and it could very well hide in the depths of it. So, if Nessie is a thing, if there is an unidentified species of something living there, what is it? Because the narrative has kind of changed a little bit, and the biggest reason for that was because back in 2018, there was a big study done, and it was a DNA study done on the lake and what exactly was in the lake. Now, a lot of people for a long time have chalked Nessie sightings up to a couple of very simple things for the most part. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but otters is definitely one of them. Seals is one of them. Now when they did the DNA study, they found no evidence of seals. However, they did find a significant amount of DNA for eels. And a lot of other parts of the world, when you look at lake monsters in other parts and where they're at, here in Ohio, we have one in Lake Erie called, known as Bessie. We have the Bessie monster. It's more of a serpentine thing.
That's cheap.
That's what it is, Bessie.
You guys couldn't have done better than that, Jesus Christ.
I didn't fucking make the name. Listen, if Aaron can rename the Texas Chupacabra, we can maybe rename Bessie. What should we name her? Do you have any ideas off the top of your head?
Something about Guided by Voices.
We'll figure it out. Something by Guided by. We'll just name it Guided by Voices.
There you go.
Anyway, but a lot of lake monsters are described as more of like a serpentine type of thing, more of a
Mhm.
dragon looking type of thing, and maybe
Right.
that's what this is, and it's just we've mistaken it over and over again, because we see a lot of humps. That again, that's most of the video evidence are like these rolling humps in the water and things like that. That would make more sense rather than a plesiosaur. But then we have sightings like the Spicer sighting, where this thing was seen on land. I mean, what do you think about? Do you think maybe those sightings are just total bullshit? Do you think they saw something? Like that stuff does that really interests me. The weirder it is, the more I like it.
Yeah, I think you have to spend a little bit of time. Anybody that's interested in this stuff, or even if you're just like a kid, you're looking for something to Google next time you're taking a shit. The the kind of evolution of dragons conceptually over the
Yes.
years is very, very interesting, and the difference between dragons and worms, and in different mythology. You know, because the original dragons were kind of seen as not having feet. They would have like the claws, but they were kind of like big snakes with like hands and shit.
Yeah.
Like there's been an evolution throughout mythology, and in some regards, Nessie does match up with like early Chinese water dragons. You know, and not so much anymore when we think of dragons. We don't think of that. We think of like D&D and shit like that, or Dragonheart or whatever. But yeah, it's there's a lot there. There's a lot of creatures in mythology that were seen of as different things at different times. And I forget what your original question was.
What do you think about Nessie walking on land?
Oh yeah, because I mean I believe that. Crossing the road to get a cow or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It had some kind of animal in its fucking mouth.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The one did. Yeah, the Grant sighting had an animal. That's right.
yeah,
It,
sure.
it,
Why not?
it
Let's do
was
it.
eating something. Well, there was
The,
even like
my
a
only problem,
hoax. Oh,
my
go
only
ahead.
problem with that is that if they're existing that much on land, that tends to suggest that they're oxygen based, right? So then it kind of
Exactly.
throws a monkey wrench into the theory that they could be traveling underwater along the Great Glen Fault, which is the fault line that basically goes through all of Scotland. And that it's there's a massive fault system in that whole area, right? So that lends itself to underground caves and underground faults and shit that's opened up that they could be swimming through. Now, if they're doing that, chances are they're water-based creatures, so the fact that they're living and chilling and walking around on land kind of makes that a little bit harder to reconcile.
Sure.
But who knows? I mean, look at whales. I know this is like not even cryptozoology. This is like normal zoology. It blows my fucking mind that like whales are like oxygen breathing mammals, and
Oh
like
yeah.
look at how deep they chill out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
they still come up for air all the time. But if this thing was coming up for air all the time, wouldn't it be seen more? But
Well, exactly. Yeah,
maybe
that's what
that's
some
where the
people think.
underground cave system comes into play, is because it's coming up for air underground somewhere
We
else where
we've
there's
got air
oxygen
pockets. Yeah.
pockets. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I mean, that's one of the arguments for it not being a plesiosaur is that it would have to, it would have to come up more and, take in air. Now, some people have reported seeing Nessie with like horns on its head. And there's a theory that these horns are actually like nostrils, like blowholes. And so it'll come up, and when you just see the horns, it's because it's getting air, so it doesn't have to fully come up. But then that would indicate some type of weird intelligent design where like
right.
something higher than us wants to keep Nessie hidden from us.
Well, no,
Why?
that's just evolution. Character traits develop over centuries because that's what keeps them alive. It keeps certain. I think that if you're if I was a philanthropist, or if I was somebody trying to like actively trying to solve the Nessie thing, I would put my time and money. I would sink it into exploring the geology of that area. You know what I mean? The cave systems, what's going on underneath the water, what connects to what. I think that should be the next kind of piece of the mystery that we try to unravel. You know
Well,
what I
I agree
mean?
with that, and I will say, if you look at Nessie history and recent Nessie history since the 1930s, I feel like there's been a lot more money thrown into discovering Nessie than there has any other cryptid. There's been a lot of studies done, a lot of people going out and trying to hunt this thing, a lot of search parties, a lot of expeditions. I mean, and it's almost constant compared to like Bigfoot. Now, maybe that's just because, I don't know, maybe demographically Bigfoot all around the entire world. I guess if you add up those numbers, then maybe it's more.
Well, it's one
If you're talking
centralized
individual.
location. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? It's
right,
Scotland. I guess if you're like, hey, let's go chill out Scotland for a season and fucking swim around in the lake and see what we can see. It's kind of a little bit easier. If you were to even say like, let's research Bigfoot in North America, where the fuck would you start? I mean, you'd have to narrow it down to one
anywhere. Yeah,
location. This is like it's already you have your location, you have your where already nailed down. You know what I mean? And that's half the battle right there. Granted, it's a big ass body of water, you know, but
right.
at least it's a little bit more easy to wrap your head around.
That's true. I agree with that. I feel like just in general, like if I feel like Nessie is not as hard of a pill to swallow as a lot of the other cryptids,
Sure.
even compared to Bigfoot. You know what I mean? I feel like Nessie is a lot more believable, and I guess I don't know why. I don't know if it's because so much effort has been put into finding this thing that it's kind of become normal, or because of the water element. Because we could have this thing living there, and it could evade us because we can't be there 24/7 to monitor every
Well,
inch.
yeah, and it's benign. You know what I mean? It's not kidnapping kids in state
Sure,
parks. It doesn't
that's true.
challenge creative design. You know what I mean? It's not like if you prove Nessie's real, it means that, God didn't make the fucking there's none of this Nephilim
That's true.
bullshit. You know what I mean? It's very easy. There's not a whole lot of bunch of stuff attached to it that you
Right,
get with some of the other cryptids. You know what I mean?
right,
It's kind of like it's probably a dinosaur or it's like some long lost species of something. Like
right.
people are okay with that.
Right. It is a giant eel. I mean, like, and I've always said this. Of course, the romantic in me would love to believe that it is a dinosaur living there. I would love that, but I don't think it probably is. I think it probably is some type of giant eel, and it's just a matter of time before we eventually discover it, or it goes extinct, or whatever. I feel like that is a more likely narrative just compared to the actual evidence that's out there. Um, I don't, but I don't think it's a far stretch. I don't think I've never questioned it. It's never been in the back of my mind. I might be a little bit biased here, being a cryptozoologist and all, but I've never questioned whether or not Nessie was real. To me, it always has been,
Right.
and it just like you said, it makes sense. There's nothing about it that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, except for maybe the on land sightings, and that kind of blows my mind. Quite a bit, but that's just because like I said, I like the extra weird stuff, and that's extra weird. But yeah, I mean, I don't, I think it's just a matter of time before we finally discover this thing. It could be going deeper into the water to die when it does, and that's why we've never found it. I mean, I think some people have even said we've like drained the lock to find it, and that's not, you can't really do that. I mean, you can to a degree, but you can't. You still can't get into all the nooks and crannies in the fault line, and you can't really get in
No one's
there.
gonna do that. Don't be ridiculous. That's like goofy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Just chill out.
There's a
Go
lot. I mean,
drain a fucking lake.
we're gonna
You
drain
know,
the whole lake to find this thing. Well,
especially one
but
that big. Yeah, and kill all the
right,
fish and fuck up everything
right.
else
Fuck
just
up
so
the
that this
whole
thing.
ecosystem. Yeah,
Right.
and then on top of that, if it can leave, it really doesn't matter if we could drain it or not to look for it, because
Right.
we can just leave. It's like, oh, shit's getting kind of weird here. I'm gonna head out for a bit and come back later. It's not a big deal. Obviously it's evaded us this long, you guys. It's not that dumb.
Right.
It might be a dumb animal, but it's not that dumb. But I don't know. I'm excited to see. Of course, I've never been up there. Anne actually, she thinks her dad saw Nessie, and not because he's ever claimed that he has, but because he went to Scotland, and he had a weird experience, and he says that he had a weird experience but doesn't talk about it. And the whole point of it is because they are very Scottish, and in a lot of their lore, seeing Nessie is like a big to do. It's a good thing. It's like a very big good luck charm, but it's like making a wish. You can't talk about it. So she thinks that
Mm-hmm.
happened to her dad, and he's never talked about it in fear of that good feeling or whatever it was, those good graces that he received would go away. So that's really interesting. But of course that's just kind of a family. But there's a lot of those instances of like, oh, that's just kind of a family thing, just like the Mothman at the airport thing. That it's probably a lot of in-house gossip that we all don't know about that could be legit, but nobody's really talking about outside of the area.
Well,
So
I got messages out to 2 O'Hare Airport employees right now, so we'll
awesome.
definitely have something. I was hoping to have an update by the end of this week's show, but
That's
definitely
okay.
for next week we'll have something.
Absolutely.
Faux
Yeah,
show.
that'll be great. I think that'll be awesome. So
All right.
that's all I really had to say about Nessie. You got anything else you want to add before we you know,
Hide
before
your
we leave?
wife, so I have a dialysis port.
Stop.
Watch
Pat
out.
is out here breaking fucking hearts with his
This
dialysis
big
port.
dick energy that fucking my emaciated body, my fucking malnourished body, and my dialysis port. People are still locking up their fucking wives.
Well, when you're emaciated, malnourished, I mean, it just makes your big dick that much more visible, I guess.
Dude,
So,
it has. I've been like a kid in a candy store this past week. I'll be real fucking honest. It's like getting a brand new skateboard.
well, that is really sound advice. Everybody, keep your wives away from Pato. He is on the prowl, I guess. And he is irresistible with his medical.
Absolutely not. I'm not on the prowl, but you can't control. You know what I mean? I mean, you've been in the presence of it. It's fucking intoxicating.
Tell your wife to hide you from everybody else because
I
apparently
know,
you're a
right? Throw a blanket
detriment
over his
to,
head.
right, to people's marriages and sanctities.
God.
I won't say any more about it, but
Dude,
just know Pat's a danger right now.
yeah, I guess
he's,
so. That's the
he's a
word on
threat.
the street.
That's the word on the street. All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we've got a lot of really exciting stuff coming up. I know you guys saw that. We are booking guests on the show. If you guys have anybody in particular that you would like for me to reach out to ask to come on the show, I will. I got some people lined up that will be super exciting, but we're still going to have a lot of this. You guys know I like this. I like, that it's us. I like that we're selective about guests. I think that's important. And I think that makes you guys all the more excited when we do have a guest on. So, but with that being said, guys, we'll see you guys here next Wednesday.